Wow. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Healthy Joints, Healthy Lifestyle Show. I have my dear friend, Dr. Julia Buchfuhrer, who's been on our show multiple times. So, for those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Arinola Dada. I'm a rheumatologist, been practicing for the last 20 years, and welcome to the Healthy Joints, Healthy Lifestyle Show. So, Dr. Julia Buchfuhrer, thank you so much for making this happen for us. She's an amazing rheumatologist in the Los Angeles area, and her clinic, she's a founder of JB Arthritis and Rheumatology Center. She's been on our show so many times, so I need not introduce her except to let you know that she is phenomenal, and we are excited to have her today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be speaking to the crowd here. If anyone has any comments on what we say, drop it below. We love to see those, and those could end up in another video as well.
That's true, because that's how we get most of our questions for is from people actually being curious. And, we're here to answer your questions. So you have two rheumatologists. Let's make this happen. So this is a Sunday before Thanksgiving, and everybody's getting ready for Thanksgiving. So big topic we're going to talk about is the pre-holiday anti-inflammatory diet. People have a lot of questions, and they've posted this over time, and we're going to get into it. So number one, for you, Dr. Julia, so, how can I enjoy my holiday meals without triggering inflammation?
Yeah, this is a big one because I'll tell you, and I'm sure you have the same experience, is after Thanksgiving, all our gout patients are calling in left and right. Our phones are going crazy, gout flares left and right. And so rather than having to answer all those calls and get patients in and give them things like steroids, let's try to prevent that gout flare up. It's better for everyone. And it's the common sense diet at the end of the day. It's the healthy diet that at the end of the day. We want to increase the vegetables on the plate. So load those veggies onto the plate. And then, of course, it's not Thanksgiving without turkey. I understand that. But there's different parts of the turkeys that are better for gout, or I should say less bad for gout, versus ones that are almost certainly going to cause a gout flare up. So the worst parts are the organ meats. If somebody's chopping up that liver and making some dip, do not touch that, please. That's going to be the worst thing as far as the part of the turkey. Then the skin is pretty bad. Dark meat, okay. But your white meat, the turkey breast and things like that are going to be the least bad as far as gout goes. So load up the veggies, add some white meat turkey. If you have to have that dark meat, put a little bit of it. Just, everything, I don't say none of something, but, everything in moderation, minimize the bad things. And then I want to see a big glass of water, sparkling water, regular water. I don't care, big glass of water, and just be drinking water throughout.
Yeah. So, Dr. Brookfer, in addition to gout, I think there's also just the general
Mm.
population, just people who are kind of concerned about, the holiday feast triggering their inflammation. So whether it's rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, kind of the whole works, if we kind of think kind of broader than just the lupus, not just the gout patients. Any specific thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, and that's a great point too, because of course there's people that have things other than gout. So, that Mediterranean diet has been very well studied as the best anti-inflammatory diet overall that works for multiple different conditions. And so let's break down what that means. Again, it's going to be high veggies, always high veggies. High veggies, they're not only are they great for us, they're high in fiber, they're anti-inflammatory. And then we want to decrease the sugars. So don't go for those sweet things onto the plate. I know a lot of people like to whip up these highly sweet dishes. Those are just highly inflammatory. We know that processed sugar is inflammatory. Now, there is good sugar you can have that's non inflammatory, which is fruits. And fruits in general, even though they are packed with sugar, tend to be anti inflammatory, especially our berries, things like that. Nuts. So, a lot of Thanksgiving dishes will be made with nuts. So, nuts are very anti inflammatory as well. And so, those are the kinds of things we can try to eat for any type of anti inflammatory diet.
I totally agree.
Dr. Dada, is it possible to travel and still stay on an anti inflammatory diet? Because the thing I see is the second my patient travels, boom, flare up of whatever their disease is.
It is definitely, and we encourage it, right? We want you to have a full life, and being with family is important, and traveling and enjoying those experiences are definitely important. But the most important thing is planning for yourself. So, you're going to travel. You can make sure that, you even pack, even for the plane, you can pack nuts, fruits. You can do hydration packets. You can even call ahead. Like, I'm going to my brother's place. I already told him, hey, yeah, I'm going to be needing XYZ vegetables. So can you please make sure you get that in addition to whatever else you're racking up? You may be traveling to friends' places where you can't just order them to do stuff, but you can take your own food too. You can take it and, a fruit platter, for instance, just a thoughtful gesture, but you're really planning for yourself, right? So
Yeah.
you want to try to keep at least one meal clean and simple. You want to make sure you're hydrated. You want to make sure you're taking short walks after meals, prevents you from overeating into that kind of situation where it's so painful to move. So I think just planning, knowing, you already know what you can expect, and you can take your own drinks. Like, you can take your own bottled water, and take enough for the group, right? So you're planning for everybody, but you're also kind of planning for yourself on the side. So I think just like, I love the idea of a food platter. Take the foods that you like that are healthy for you. Take it along forth when you're going on the trip. So definitely, and I'm assuming this is people that are traveling and then are going to get on the ground and then just rush into Thanksgiving dinner. So, you can plan, stop at the grocery store, pick up some nice fruits and cut it up in a nice plate for them. So everybody gets to share. And so we're not just kind of loading up on the high salt, high inflammatory processed foods that are there.
I love that idea of bringing something that's good for you and bringing enough for everyone because kind of the worst thing you could do when you're for anyone that's following a certain diet plan for a medical reason, the worst thing you could do is kind of look around and pick, oh, I can't eat that, I can't eat that. And now all of a sudden people are looking at you like, what's going on? Instead, I love that idea of bring what you know you can eat and you like to eat and bring enough for everyone. And no one's going to be giving you unusual looks.
Side
I love
eye,
that.
inside eye. Oh, asking you questions that you don't feel like answering. You know what? I don't want to talk
Mhm.
about my health today. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
This way,
And
everybody gets to partake.
you know what? Let me ask you another question here, just because I've heard you talk about this before. What do you think in regards to Thanksgiving? A lot of people are having that dinner around 2 or 3 p.m. And so they're like, oh, I got to save room. I'm not going to eat. They're kind of fasting all day before that big meal. What are your thoughts on that? And what would you suggest?
And I'm going to say I have been guilty of both fasting and saying, oh, I'm not going to eat anything to thank. And I get there and my brain is not in control. My body is, my stomach is leading the way. So what I've learned over the years, personal experience, is I actually eat what I want to eat. I load up on vegetables and the healthy things that I want so that when I get to Thanksgiving, I can pick and choose. My brain is still working, not that ravenous animal in me. That
I
is
love
just
it.
ready to dive into the first thing it sees. Now I'm, the edge is off. I'm not hungry. I can pick and choose. And like, I can have a little bit of this. I can control the quantity of what I eat too, right?
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
so I
Yep.
think definitely over the years I've learned, people are like, I'm gonna fast into Thanksgiving and then boom. No, I have learned better. I now eat the healthy things, my vegetables. I eat my eggs in the morning, my vegetables, so that when I go in, I can look at all the offerings and kind of pick and choose what I want. So, any thoughts on how you manage that or what you
Yeah,
recommend?
I think that's perfect. It's the old tale of never go to the grocery store hungry, right? But I love how you put it, ravenous animal. I think that's the idea, right? Have a small to moderate meal a couple hours beforehand. So when you get there, you don't just kind of go crazy on everything.
Yeah,
Now your brain's online, your frontal lobe's online, and you can
yeah,
kind of make the choices you need to make.
yeah, yeah. I think during our last interview when we talked about food, you had some really smart things about how people can kind of handle the holiday drink situation. So the
Mhm.
question was, what holiday drinks can you have and which ones cause inflammation?
Yeah, so there's a couple bad things about drinks in general that can cause inflammation. One is the sugar itself. You know, these cocktails or even in things like eggnog, even non-alcoholic eggnog, full of processed sugar, which is pro-inflammatory. And then the other part of it is these things dehydrate you, and a dehydrated state is not a healthy state either. And many of our inflammatory diseases will have flare-ups when we're dehydrated. So first and foremost, I want to see water beforehand. even before you get there, the night before. You want to come in with a hydrated body. But as far as drinks to pick, stay away from eggnog, please. I mean, if you love it, have a small amount. I try to never say don't have something.
It sounds healthy, eggnog.
Eggnog, right? Yeah, protein pack. No, this isn't the liquid eggs Arnold Schwarzenegger's drinking, right? This is a very different drink. The other things that are pretty inflammatory are things like beer and cocktails. Cocktails mixed with a lot of sugary mixers. So if you want to have that alcohol, and I hear a lot of my patients say, "Hey, I don't want to be the only person not drinking alcohol at the table." And so what I say is make a drink, make it a smart drink choice, and kind of sip on the drink throughout the night. Don't drink at a fast pace so that you're having 2, 3, 4, 5 drinks. And the drink I always recommend to my patients is a spritzer. So we have some sort of carbonated water, and then add to that some lime, and then you can have your one shot of the vodka or whatever your alcohol or spirit of choice is in there. So now you have your fun alcoholic drink. You can walk around holding it. You can be at the dinner table with it. But it has more water in there, so it's hydrating. So you're not going to get dehydrated from it. And two, it's just one controlled shot of something. And it's not like these cocktails can have 3, 4 drinks in one glass. And so that's kind of my smart way to do things. The other thing about being hydrated beforehand is when we start to drink and we're dehydrated, we can get a little inebriated and then our frontal lobe goes offline and now we've had 3, 4 drinks, right? So it's so important what you're doing beforehand as well. What are your thoughts and what do you tell your patients?
No, I totally love that, and I totally agree with that. And I think comes back to planning. I think if you get there and you're reacting to what you find, you haven't planned for the water, you really haven't planned the hydration. You get in there, somebody puts a glass of whatchamacallit in your hands. Okay, you drink that down because you're thirsty. But now you've kind of loaded up on sugar. And now your inhibitions are down. Your frontal lobe that's able to control all behaviors is subdued. So now it's wild, wild west, right?
Yeah.
Now you're just eating, drinking. You have no control. And it's 2 days later, you'll be like, what happened at Thanksgiving, And so planning for yourself, knowing, hey, we've been to enough Thanksgiving to know what the deal is. So now I agree with Dr. Julia, which is, hey, let's make sure we're hydrated well before. You have your glass, you sip it slowly. And anytime anybody comes around, those kind souls that want to refill your glass, no, I'm still working on this one, which is different from saying, oh, I'm not having any. Then it goes to, well, why aren't you having any? Like, yeah. Okay. So
I love that because the last thing we want to do during holiday is have to explain ourselves. So I love that idea. Now let me ask you, we've talked about anti-inflammatory foods. We've talked about prepping. We've talked about drinks. Now, what do you think about just salty holiday foods and how that relates to inflammation?
Yeah, I think I've heard people talk about, there's a sugar addiction, there's also a salt addiction, right? But in terms of, because you just want to eat more and more and more, right? Of it, rather than just kind of savoring the food itself, it's the salt, that hits the taste buds, or the sugar that hits the taste buds. But in terms of salty foods, high sodium, which is what salt is, increases a lot of swelling and it can worsen joint pain. So whether it's, if it's canned foods, if you're the one preparing it, you can rinse them out. You can choose like low sodium broth. Again, if you're the one doing the preparation, making sure that you're keeping water intake steady. And they are, what was that salt substitute? Do you remember what that is? Which kind of has more potassium. Do you remember that? Mrs. Dash. Got it.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
I don't even think they still sell it. But
I don't know. I remember that though.
Yeah, I remember Mrs. Dash is a good option, but also adding some potassium-rich food, so oranges, bananas, spinach, also kind of help to balance a lot of that high sodium. But keeping hydrated is very helpful, and just being careful. If they have some salted popcorn, it's salted popcorn, right? Or if they have caramel popcorn, it's caramel popcorn, right? Yeah. So it tends to look benign, but once you taste it, there's a lot of salt in there. So it could be the explanation for waking up the next day and saying, why are my hands so swollen? Why are my joints so swollen? So still being very mindful of sodium, high salt, causing a lot of fluid retention, which can, from a joint standpoint, cause swelling in the joints, making function more difficult. But of course, there is the whole, your heart. If you're taking a lot of sodium, that actually means that there is more fluid retention because water tends to follow sodium and so into your vessels. And then that means your heart has to work harder. So during the holidays, we're going so totally a little off topic here. But I remember when I was a resident, those blessed days, and I would be on call on either Thanksgiving night or Christmas night or New Year's Eve. There was heart failure was the
Oh, yeah.
number one cause of the ER admissions. I don't know if you had that. And that was just because people ate too much salt.
Absolutely. I mean, that was their whole next week, right? Was just heart failure after every one of these holidays. And I worked briefly in medical school in the Las Vegas University ER, right by the Strip. And I asked them, "What is your busiest day of the year?" I was working there Halloween night, and we just saw tons of crazy stuff. And I said, "So, what's your busiest day of the year?" And without hesitation, every single one said Thanksgiving.
Thanks.
And it's all of these things we just talked about combined. So absolutely agree with what you said.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Sleep.
Mm.
So, people want to know. I think, the value of sleep may be a little undervalued. I think, it's just a go-go world, and people are like, I got to get up before the sun and go to bed late and all that. But people want to know, does lack of sleep trigger inflammation, especially during the holidays?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a great question. And I've actually written a chapter in a sleep medicine book. So, sleep is near and dear to my heart. And even one night of bad sleep increases inflammatory molecules in our body. And just more than that is when we're not getting good sleep, our cortisol levels go up. And when our cortisol levels go up, all our hormones start to shift and it makes us hungrier and we eat more and we tend to make poor decisions because we're sleepy and now we're eating inflammatory foods. And you just get this cascade of more and more inflammation the worse you are sleeping. And I don't know about you, Dr. Data, but one of the most common things I see in my patients that come to me for the first time with rheumatoid arthritis or gout or whatever it is, and they have a lot of inflammation in their body, none of them are sleeping well. And is it the chicken or the egg? It's probably both, right? And so while we focus on trying to decrease inflammation, I think we need to separately focus on trying to get good sleep. And that is primarily through good sleep hygiene and good sleep habits. And, I think it's beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about today, but simply trying to keep a consistent wake time, consistent sleep cycle is extremely important, especially around the holiday season.
I totally agree. And just to reiterate, a lot of our patients that are dealing with inflammation from other causes, when we are trying to investigate why are they feeling so fatigued, that is when the issue with the poor sleep really starts to kind of rear its head as we kind of go down those questioning. And then we find out that, oh, well, we're having some poor sleep hygiene issues. And then we kind of go down that path. And then sometimes we find out it's treatable causes. None of my patients like to be on don't like to do that sleep study. They're like, I don't want to be on that. That's not sexy. But but when they have gotten their poor sleep hygiene treated, it's made a world of difference and it has been life changing. So I totally agree with you that stress hormone, the cortisol hormone, that just tends to it's like your whole body is inflamed, right? And that's typically how
Absolutely.
your body is just a response to your body's stress. So I think the short answer for that person who asked the question is yes, lack of sleep can trigger inflammation for sure.
Now that you're talking about stress, I'm going to ask you the question that is probably the thing we got asked the most, right? Are there any supplements that a patient could take during the holiday stressful period to kind of decrease their chance of having inflammation?
So I typically like to recommend to my patients supplements that we have some evidence for.
Mhm.
And so, being the Pacific Northwest, vitamin D is important, especially if they're low and we're getting into our winter months. So I typically recommend a supplement for that anyway. I'm a strong believer in omega 3s. I'm also a strong believer in turmeric. There are a lot of other ones that people recommend, but I think those are kind of my three main staples. I've recommended glucosamine chondroitin off and on for people with osteoarthritis. I have them try it for 3 months. If it helps, yes. If it doesn't help, we're kind of done. But tell me, do you have any supplements that you typically would recommend to patients?
I mean, you hit the 3 that I always recommend, right? Turmeric, or also known as curcumin, has very good evidence as an
Yes.
anti-inflammatory, omega-3s as well. And I agree with you. I'm here in Southern California, which is much sunnier, but you'd be shocked at how many people have a low vitamin D because we're so good at putting on sunscreen and we're indoors most of the time. And so I think most people are vitamin D deficient, and there's a lot we don't know about vitamin D, but there's receptors on the hearts and many of our other organs. And so likely it plays a much bigger role than we even know. So I'm also trying to have that repleted in my patients that deal with inflammation.
Okay. Well, we're getting to our final question here, Dr. Buchfuhrer. So I think people want to know, what is one simple rule to follow all season long? What would you say?
Ooh, I would say we talk about removing things and not trying to eat things and all these negative commands, right? Don't do this, don't do that. Well, how about let's give a positive command. Let's say veggies first. Add the good stuff first. Load those on. And then once you're full and things have settled, now your brain can think, okay, what do I want to add and to my plate and things like that. So let's add before we subtract. Let's add
I
those veggies, get them loaded in. What do you think?
I like that. I like that abundance mindset. Add more stuff. Just be selected. Add more vegetables, drink more water, add the berries, the strawberries, add those things, have a nice, colorful plate. And then over time, well, there's not going to be room for the other stuff, right? Over time, we can start to subtract. I totally enjoy having these sessions with you, Dr. Buchfuhrer. So if anybody wants to find you, how they find you?
Yeah, so I'm in Los Angeles, like you said. Our website is jbarthritis.com. And we have a contact page there. You can contact us directly from the webpage. How about you? If somebody's up near Seattle, how can they contact you?
Oh, yeah. If you are in the Seattle area, find me at Dr. Arinola Dada. Find me at overlakearthritis.com. And yeah, we're in Bellevue and we have a number of physicians who are excellent and APP. So yeah, we have a team either in LA or in Seattle to take care of you.
Yes, I love it.
Okay, so don't forget, guys, like this video, share it with anybody who like Thanksgiving is coming and they're thinking about diet at all, and subscribe to the channel to give you more information so that you can have a healthy version of yourself. Take good care, everybody.
Bye.